Welcome to the Brothers and Sisters podcast. This is what's coming up next, so stay tuned.
About what, as Autumn said, like social media not being real life in the sense that
it is in some ways. I can't say that it's not at all, but what happens on social media, like for people who are on it regularly, I think they get caught up in thinking that that bubble is a reflection of what's going on in the country or in the world. And it's like, not so much.
We're talking about defund the police with the background of Eric Adams winning the New York City mayoral primary. There were some good things that were discussed. Walter wanted me to record earlier, but you know, I'm a stickler for time, so we start on the 5s and the 0s. Again, if you have a national organization like that, that's federal, right? Like, can you have a national organization that's independent? I don't know if you can.
Because
not independent, but independent of the specific police.
But every got different laws, dude. In Pennsylvania,
like force or precincts, like police should not be policing each other.
No.
However that looks,
no,
leave that to the experts, but it can be done, or there should at least be a start.
There should be a civilian review board. I agree with that.
So
yeah, or even if it's, changing what police are permitted to do and how they, it's very complicated because
do we have problems
fight tooth and nail to keep it as it is?
Do we have problems with the slogan? I know I did. Got lambasted for it, but I think the worm is kind of turning and people are like, yeah, the slogan is kind of stupid now. Because I think we all agree on the policies, right?
It turns people off, and I can see why it turns people off. Because a lot of people don't read beyond. They just like, defund the police, but it's like, do you know what that means?
And there's a constant boogeyman narrative in the United States. Like, say, quasi, like people we went to school, like these motherfuckers have gone their whole life. They ain't never had no home invasion or been around no shit like that, but are terrified and gunned out for what? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's all this constant fear mongering that's been going on in this country, and it's hard to get rid of or tap into, I guess.
I think what's interesting, and we talked about it earlier, with Adams, particularly in New York, he was running against some progressive candidates who were for defunding police. And he won in areas that were for lack of a better term, densely populated Black and Latino areas where he cleaned up.
Yep.
And he was like, and again, Adams is like kind of a reformer too. Cops don't really fuck with him. But it's like he still was like, it was almost like the dichotomy in the general election in the DNC. And it was like, who's for defunding the police? And it's like, everybody's like, I am. And then like Joe Biden and Kamala are like, I don't know about defunding the police, but I'm for that. He's like that kind of guy. And like,
I don't care if a person says I'm not for defunding the police, but they do things and they take actions that look the way I want defunding to look. I don't care what the words are, just do the stuff.
Yeah. So that's interesting. It seems like a lot of people are wedded to the hashtag. Like that became a personal thing.
Because it's easy. You don't have to think as much.
Bingo. One more time, Autumn. One more time.
People don't like to think. People like just nice, little, concise, simple things that they can say to use as an argument. No one really wants to read, or it just, it is what it is.
Soundbites and hashtags. That's what it's about.
People love hashtags.
So that's the thing though. Like if you're gonna have a hashtag, like it's gotta be catchy and it's gotta be,
Defund the police is catchy though. Is it not catchy? Or
it's very catchy, it's very eye-catching, ear-catching, but even if it's reform the police, I don't know, will people be happier with that? It'll look the same.
The police, right? Reprioritize the police or something like that.
Yeah, too many syllables. You stop using your Ivy League education. You're using too many syllables. We need to speak.
But at the same time, though, you say defund the police, the first thing people think of is no police. And then you have especially people in heavily populated, densely populated Black and brown areas. Some people might call the hood, or like, cats on the street out here. No, we want police. Like, we just
Right.
don't want them to fuck us up, right? Like, that's the idea.
Right. We want the police to treat everyone the same. Like, Black people want to get the same treatment that white people get. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. Like, we don't want to die. A lot of it just boils down to, can we just not
Or if
die?
that's who you are, fuck everybody up equally.
Yeah, but we don't want
That's
bag.
not-
I'd be for that.
We don't want bag.
Yeah, I'd be
And
for
we
that.
don't want
Like,
people. We don't want police being able to abuse their power. And they shouldn't have all these military type weapons. Like, what? No, like, that's a part of defunding. I don't think people necessarily think about it. I mean, I'm sure there are people who do, but the ones who are opposed to it, possibly the loudest that are on social media, have the issues. Social media is like super loud, but doesn't necessarily represent the ideas and views of the majority.
yeah, I think I saw something. It's like, I think 20% of Americans have a Twitter account.
Right.
It's
That's
like
a lot of people,
really,
but not a lot when it comes
Yeah,
to
like Twitter
voting.
drives so much, but like most people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
Right. Like,
like,
most people I know, they're like,
Twitter.
wait, what was on Twitter? What?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not on there. I just, like.
And it's funny because I posted Adams, obviously New York is AOC. It's obviously probably the most dynamic city in the world, media, public, etc. Adams has, I think, 16,000 Twitter followers. And before I was banned on Twitter, I had 4. So I had a quarter of his Twitter followers. He's the mayor of New York. And he doesn't even have a check mark. He's not even verified.
Right.
And like, there's got to be a lesson to be learned there somewhere about what, as Autumn said, like social media not being real life in the sense that
It is in some ways. I can't say that it's not at all, but what happens on social media, like for people who are on it regularly, I think they get caught up in thinking that bubble is a reflection of what's going on in the country or in the world. And it's like, not so much.
Yeah. The I think kind of sort of attached to that, and when we're talking about our communities and where it is, because it kind of sort of links. Nicole Hannah-Jones decides to, after the fight with UNC, which we talked about maybe last week, Walter, or 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, to get tenure. She finally gets it. I didn't realize that she went to UNC and
Right.
was like she's like a UNC grad, and like UNC gave her a start. She decides she's fuck it. I'm going to Howard. We're going to Howard to make it happen. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Go where you're welcome, go where you're appreciated, go where you're needed. I mean, if you want to go against the grain and fight tooth and nail every day,
So your kid,
they can. It's a matter of preference, but it makes sense to me. Like, why wouldn't you want to do what you love and be around people who appreciate what you're doing?
because you're yelling into an echo chamber.
Because I'm sorry, what was that?
You're yelling into an echo chamber.
Is there going to be the dissent, the pushback?
I would say
at
that if
Howard?
she weren't like
No.
published.
There won't be pushback at Howard. There'll be pushback at Carolina. It won't be at Howard. The people who need to hear her voice are in Carolina, not in Howard.
Do you think that's a really good,
That is a good point.
Yeah, that's why I think it
Yeah.
boils down to a personal preference.
No. See, she's too public now. It's not a personal choice anymore. It's
Just
for the-
still
doesn't
human
look like
being.
she ran away.
She gets to do what she want to
She
do.
does.
Yeah,
It doesn't look like she ran away.
she ran away.
Yo, I'm
I
not
don't
even.
think she ran away.
I'm
I
not
think,
even-
I mean,
Sorry.
I understand where she's
It's kind
coming
of like
from.
what Jesus and Meryl say. Suck my dick from the back. Like
Pretty
I've been begging
much.
you for this shit this whole
Why
time.
should I beg you?
Watch me leave you. Like I'm qualified and great at what I do. So kiss my ass. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, yeah, she's public and everybody, a lot of people know her, but she is still a human being and she is still a Black woman who goes through a lot of shit. And it is up to her. Does she want to be like, we don't have to live in her shoes every day. It's great to see her do the work and it's great to see the impact of her work, but we don't know what toll it takes on her as a human being every day. She's the one who's got to deal with that. That's why I think it's a personal decision. Would it be, I mean, either way, her getting tenure.
She still has a platform.
Yeah, and she's published. It's not like no one other than Black people are going to see her work or read her work.
But we all know what it's like. We're all Black in professional settings. So
which is why I did not go to a PWI for college, because I was like, damn that. I want some peace in my life.
So what you're essentially saying is it's if your kid gets accepted to Harvard and to Howard and they have full scholarship to both, you're gonna send your kid to Howard or Harvard?
I'm gonna tell my kid, go where you want to go. You're an adult. This is your first adult choice. So you get to make that decision. That was the rule in my house. Autumn, this is your first decision as an adult.
Nope.
You get to make that choice. I can't make decisions for you. And I picked an HBCU. And the most successful Black people I know, and I know plenty of Black people who've gone to Ivy Leagues, the most successful ones I know, FAMU, Howard, Hampton, all of them, even the smaller ones that a lot of people haven't heard of, like Paul Quinn and Rust and stuff like that.
Not my experience.
Yeah, I mean, but it is. And I mean, there's the facts are out there. The articles are out there. The most, like, out of engineers, doctors, the careers that people look to in such high esteem, most of the Black people who do those things come from HBCUs.
There's a math component there, though, right? Most Black people have a tough time graduating from college, really overall, but especially at PWIs, right? So
because we don't get the support there. At HBCU, it's like this. If you are capable of getting into Harvard or Howard, you're the type of person who's probably going to be successsul no matter where you go.
Yeah.
But if you're the type of person who maybe you didn't grow up with the necessary resources and you can't get into a Harvard or another type of Ivy League school, an HBCU will accept you and you will get the support. Now it is up to you
you gotta make your own grade.
You gotta do that kind of thing. It's up to you to be successful, but those other schools don't care about you. HBCU people care. And I've witnessed it, I've experienced it, and I've been in both environments where I have seen how students of color are completely mistreated, overlooked, and how white students are coddled. That was my experience at law school. Like
that's what I was going to ask about.
Meaning, like my friends and I, there was a time my friends and I were studying. We had this room, and a professor and like maybe 8 students came in, and we were like, "Oh, they're like, no, it's fine. We're just gonna, have a discussion." So we're studying. They're having a discussion. The professor is essentially giving them all of the cheat codes to like.
That's what extra help
passing
is.
the bar, getting through law school, everything. And we were just sitting there like, y'all gonna do this right in our face? It's like we just happened to stumble across this conversation. What other conversations are happening? And I thought back to my years at being at an HBCU where I was like, well, that was kind of the norm for me. We used to talk to our professors, have lunch with our professors. The guys would sometimes play basketball with the professors. Certain students, like I have a friend who was thinking about applying to an Ivy League, like certain Ivy League school. He was like, I'm not pressed. And one of the professors was like, no, you're going to do it. You're going to apply. And I'm going to pay your application fee. And he got in for grad school and he went.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. If you're a Black student, you better be the best at a PWI and look out for yourself because nobody out there is
nobody else.
Unless you come across another Black professor and you can kind of like build that bond together. But I just know I felt safer and it was easier for me to excel in an environment where I knew people cared about me as opposed to going to high school and going to law school in predominantly white environments.
2 questions. One, what do we think about Nicole Hannah-Jones applying for tenure at a PWI as opposed to an HBCU, having the trouble and the roadblock set up, overcoming, and then almost being like, no, I'm going to do this instead? And then 2, Autumn, why did you choose PWI for law school instead of HBCU?
Well, number one, there are not a lot of HBCUs that have law schools.
I'm thinking Howard. Who else?
Howard, yeah.
FAMU, well, so no, and this is a crazy. So once upon a time, well, FAMU has a law school now. Their first class started, I think, my first year of law school. I was hesitant to go to FAMU law because I'm like, a law school isn't accredited until they graduate their first class.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I didn't trust that I would get a good education, but I was nervous because I'm like, I don't want to be the first. I would rather go somewhere that's a little more established. But back in the day, FAMU had a law school.
Carolina.
And FSU said mine. And then we lost it. Yeah. We always have great stuff, and then people come along and snatch it up. Like there was a FAMU law, and it was a good law school, and then FSU decided no and slapped their name on it. That's why we don't have it anymore. Well, we have it now, but it's not until
that probably was funding related too, I'm sure.
It was during civil rights time. Like no, like anybody who knows the history was like, no, FSU took that shit. The state decided FSU was more worthy. Oh, and they're both state schools in the same city.
Same city.
Like, and when it comes to, I don't know how other state institutions work, but when I was applying to college in Florida, if you're applying for a state school there, the entire application is the same. You just check the box of which school you're choosing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we don't look at where she gets kudos for going to Howard, but not necessarily for choosing an HBCU first. Because she could have done this. She could have done Howard from the gate, probably gotten it, and then there wouldn't have been this, right?
Yeah, for me, she gets kudos regardless because of her work. And I think she gets to decide what she wants to do with her own work. I think it's part of like, I don't like to see when a person becomes dehumanized because their work becomes bigger than who they are. And I think what it boils down to is what she feels is the best decision for her career. Regardless, you know, it's not like she was going to change the world at UNC, and she's probably not going to change the world at Howard, but I think that she's capable of making a meaningful impact in each place or wherever she goes. So wherever she decides to do that, you know, people in her presence are going to benefit no matter what.
But to Walt, go ahead, Mackie.
Yeah, she could have changed the world. But when you were talking about like, what do we think about the whole tenure decision? And like, I'm not even heavy into sports, but I know the pop culture, and this reminds me of like the LeBron decision, the Miami decision. Except with hers though, hers might have like, and this is probably objective to say hers is more noble, but she had a connection that she went to UNC as an undergrad.
Yeah.
Okay? But then it turns out she also wanted to go to Howard. She had applied to Howard, but for some reason she didn't go to Howard. So
yeah, like, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, like so that's why it ends up like Autumn was saying. It's like it's a personal decision too. But I do like the whole flex. Like they put her through the ringer, and then she called them out. That's why, you know, she was like, she straight up said like, yeah, she didn't like how that ended up. It became a national scandal. But like, you know, she's gonna take her talents to Howard, which I appreciate. And for Howard, she said her main goal, or one of her main goals, is to help them gain more funding. So like, of course, education, knowledge is power. That's huge. But if they could get more funding, they already have Mackenzie Bezos. She donated a lot. So like,
he's giving all the HBCUs money.
Yeah,
they all get money from her.
That's true. But the fact that Howard's in DC, right? It's in the capital city. So like, it needs like, Howard needs to be on the offense. So I think it's really cool that she got on there.
It's a medical school there, right?
Yeah. My
so that's the same thing.
She just moved to Texas last week to do her fellowship.
Wow.
Galveston.
And then, of course, she went to undergrad in greatest school, the greatest school in the nation. Yeah, there we go. But to Walter's point, though, like her voice, like that pushback. So now UNC is still Black professorless in their media department, right? And
that's their fault. And they need to sit and suffer with the consequences of listening to some loud, dumbass donor, because most people wanted her to be there anyway. And it does suck that she didn't get to like go to UNC and it was a smooth process. You know, if that was her first choice, then I don't like how this panned out in general, but now see what happens. Maybe next time, whenever someone who is as talented and brilliant as her graces your presence,
You'll appreciate it.
You'll appreciate it. You won't
Yeah.
lose all this talent. And who knows what she could do at Howard? It's possible that down the line, UNC could be like, damn, our school could have had that.
Yeah.
Thanks, whoever. But yeah, I mean, it's all, I get it. I get why she was just like, whatever, I'm done. I'm going to Howard. They're probably paying her more anyway. Well, yeah, I mean, they're probably, maybe they're not, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the funding situation is, but if they aren't paying her more.
I know that Carolina could buy Howard.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but would they be willing to give her what she deserves as opposed to Howard probably being more willing to give her what she deserves?
I'm wondering if I'm pretty sure there's a range, right? From tenure professor.
Yeah, because I don't know how professor salaries.
She was starting almost like a black journalism, black media like department at UNC also. So I'm sure it was going to be somewhere within that range. But like you said, Autumn, that the kind of sort of comfort and freedom that I see it both ways. I kind of sort of lean towards Walter only because like
I see it both ways.
I'm all about like, I'm here, I deserve to be, and you're going to listen to what I have to say. Like and like those institutions, but at the same time, like with what she went through and like the struggle and like all of the work that was done to break down that barrier, I would love to have seen her, go through. But
yeah,
it's what it is.
I see it both ways also, which is why it's like I can understand why a person would want to keep pushing and fighting.
Yeah.
Some people, that's just a part of their personality. That's what lights a fire under them. But there are people who are that kind of thing. You can only do so much of it, and it wears you out, and it makes you really tired. Which is why I think it is really a personal preference. Because I could see another person being like, "No, you're gonna have to deal with me every day. You're gonna have to deal with my hair and my style and how I operate as a Black woman in this space." And that would be beautiful. But I could completely see it the other way, where a person is just like, you know what? I don't want to have to fight every day.
A question for Sean, and it's a wholly hypothetical. Like, let's say like there's funding and endowment for acting, or more or less like an industry, almost like supply chain situation from like a school. Like, would it be more beneficial at an HBCU, or would it be more beneficial? Like, could you do it at Howard or Hampton, Sean, or would you do it at Tisch?
What?
Like, what would be more beneficial?
If you were to do like an acting, like
an acting, like a pipeline for Black actors, right? Like, what roles to pick? What scripts like should be read, accepted, and whatnot? What people to work with? Would that be more beneficial?
As an administrator?
Like if you were
would that be more beneficial at like Howard or Hampton at HBCU, or would it be more beneficial at like Tisch or USC?
What are we talking about with the standing resources that each place has, or you talking about imagining?
Well, we have to, right?
Like
it has to be with the standing resources.
Such a thing, where do you think it would be best
For Black actors?
Yeah.
Like
if you were a Black actor that's in school, you're younger, like where do you think
where is it
that type of program would be most beneficial?
That's essentially what this is about, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what this is.
Like is that more needed at Tisch, or is it more needed at a school that
Like Tisch has all the resources. Tisch is in New York City already.
Tisch is good already. Tisch don't need no help. Black students there may need it.
Students there probably would say.
But the school itself does not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's tough. That's why I couldn't fault her decision or question it either way, because it's a very tough
about, right?
decision.
Like that Media Institute, they're creating writers, editors, journalists, researchers. Like that's essentially what they're going to be doing, what they're introducing. Is that needed? And that's kind of sort of to Walter's point. Is that needed more at HBCUs, or is it needed more at PWIs. Basically, do Black students need more support at PWIs or HBCUs? If you rephrase the question that way, Autumn, you kind of sort of answered it in the sense that it's probably
We need more support at
white institutions.
PWIs, more resources at HBCUs.
Right.
Right. And
Exactly.
did a quick check. Howard pays on average 6% less than the national average for professors that are tenured in the United States of America. So they pay less.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because UNC just has more.
Tenure UNC pays
tobacco money.
At Howard,
right? All that good slave money.
Pays 100.
But they collected over the years. Of course,
all
they can
that slave money.
Right.
Yeah, but Howard just got that bag though, so like hopefully they could pay her more.
They about to write a Cosby's what they about to do.
Yeah, Ta-Nehisi is there too.
Yeah.
So I think he kind of sort of may have felt that same thing. He was at Columbia, right? And he was at Columbia at least a while back, and now he's at Howard. So it's interesting. That's actually a really good discussion, which we'll probably go back to. Which we'll probably go back to. All right, I will stop recording here.